Now we have to go live in two places, I think.
We're definitely professionals.
Our stream status is bad, all caps.
Sweet.
Uh, guess it's live. Let me hold on. Let me check YouTube. Actual YouTube.
I only have so much whiskey here, Ben.
I only brought one beer. So we're gonna make this count. All right. We're live. Take it away, Matthew.
Cool. All right. Welcome to episode 68 of PHP Town Hall. Very special episode. Joining us tonight is the one, the only, the great Taylor Otwell, fresh off the release of Laravel 6. Taylor, how's it going?
Pretty good. Hanging in there. How are y'all?
Hanging in there. Just starting a new job, so chilling, doing my best.
Nice. You're
Ben?
work from home now, right, Matt?
I am. I joined the Cool Kids Club, I think. So
Yeah. Did
Very
you just burn all your pants and buy gym shorts?
I mean, I sit in cycling pants pretty much all the time now, so I'm just like ready to go biking.
It's
at,
just like extra training.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll set my
Should get one
trainer
of
up.
those little biking desk, right? Where it's kind of like a stand desk, but you bike when you're in it.
I'm not made of money, Ben. Okay. How's it going on? Yeah, I gotta make money to spend money.
You're
So
gonna make money, right? No.
I'm working on it. Ben, how's it going?
Oh, things are good. Nothing too new on this front.
Wasn't it like just your birthday or something?
Yeah, it was, which I think I'm very old now because my one request for my birthday was like, can we just not have more than 2 drinks and go home, please?
Damn. I'm both proud of you and very ashamed, all in the
It's the end
same.
of an era.
Yeah. But so we brought Taylor on to talk all things Laravel. So I wanted to start off with a very big question, Taylor. You've posted on Twitter before about Star Wars. How do you feel about Galaxy's Edge? Like super stoked, super stoked, or like you ready to be disappointed?
Super stoked, I think. I mean, I want to go. We were just at Disney World last Christmas actually, and like we were just talking about, like should we go back because of the new stuff. And yeah, I don't know. The kids will like it for sure, and I think it'd be pretty cool. So I guess I would put myself as super stoked.
Nice. I'm going at Christmas, so I'm tempted to go to Galaxy's Edge, but also like I know it's gonna be a dumpster fire with all the people there, so it's like one of the
definitely be crowded.
When is it open?
It opened like last week or something, like right in time for the hurricane.
Like
Disney.
Oh gosh.
Small. Well,
Yeah.
smaller than I am now.
Well, I mean, whenever I go to Disney World, I just hang out. It's a small world and feel like I'm at home with my people. But no, really, we want to bring you on and talk about Laravel. First off, congratulations for Laravel 6. That's a huge release. That project's how old is Laravel? I know I've known since like the 4.0 days, but I know it extends further back than that.
It's 8 years old as of, or really, yeah, 8 years old in June of this year. So yeah, it's been a while. Definitely didn't expect it to like live this long or be popular like this 8 years down the road, but here we are. And yeah, pretty crazy. Once we get to 10 years, I think that'll feel really crazy because that just feels like really old to me in terms of like tech.
Yeah. We were, before we go live on the video, we were just chatting about how Tara was our first guest. And that was back in 2012. And the Laravel 4 was just about to launch. And it's really wild to think back, like the journey Laravel's taken. What was, so I don't think I really used 3 much. 3 was like really bare bones, right? Remember right?
Yeah, like when Laravel 1.0 first came out, it was more like in the Slim and Silex space, I would say, where it was kind of a micro framework. I don't remember if it had an ORM in it or not, but it was not supposed to be like in the Symfony and Zen space in terms of frameworks. It was really light and maybe even referred to it as a micro framework. I don't remember. But then like the progression of it was after I got hired, because I wasn't really a PHP developer when I wrote Laravel. I was a .NET developer, but then I got hired by a company called Userscape at sort of like January 2012, about 6 months after Laravel came out. And they build a help desk software called HelpSpot, and Ian, the founder, wanted to like rewrite a bunch of it. It was already PHP, but he sort of wanted to like modernize it and get it on Laravel because he kind of liked it. And a lot of Laravel's growth kind of came out of like the features we needed there. So like since it was, I was working with Eric Barnes, and we needed like, database migrations and queues and a lot of these features that sort of were driven out of this help desk product we were building. And that's where Laravel got like kind of fleshed out into the framework as it exists today, basically.
That's cool. I remember like my first introduction to Laravel was Laravel 4, and then I remember in Laravel 5 you kind of stripped a lot of it away. Was that just because you want to make it easier for you to maintain it, or was it like a kind of a community survey that you realized people weren't using parts of it and you decided to take that out? Or
A lot of it was just sort of like feeling things out. Laravel 4, I would say, was sort of the first modern, like in quotation marks, modern version of Laravel, in the sense that it used Composer and it had like unit testing stuff out of the box and was sort of more based around the dependency injection container and all of that. But so like when I first put out 4, I was very much just like feeling things out, engaging a lot of the reaction for the people that were using it. And so I think 5, there was a lot of, when 5 came out, there was a lot of stuff that was kind of like hot in PHP at the time. So like command buses were hot, and like people were talking a lot about like DDD and like clean architecture and stuff. And so some of the stuff in 5 was sort of influenced by that, like stripping it down some, adding in the command bus, just sort of like community reaction type stuff. And then ever since then, it's just sort of, there hasn't actually been like a huge paradigm shifting release since Laravel 5. It's just sort of been incremental releases, and every 6 months we do a release, and there usually is some changes and even some breaking changes, but I try to keep it like within a few hours of upgrade time. I think Laravel 6 release was estimated to be like an hour for most apps, but even that's probably fairly generous. So yeah, the main reason for jumping to like Laravel 6 is, if you've hung around Laravel for a while, like from 3 to 4 to 5, those were huge changes. And that's not really the case from 5 to 6. It's mainly just that we adopted semantic versioning in the framework itself, which we were already using in all of our packages like Laravel Cashier and Nova and Horizon. All that stuff was already using semantic versioning. But Laravel sort of had this sort of like marketing twist on its versioning, where the first number had like this huge significance, just for like marketing purposes and branding purposes. It didn't really stick to some semantic versioning. So now that like Laravel feels pretty settled and mature to me, we just like adopted the semantic versioning because the first number doesn't really matter that much anymore to us. But anyway, it's kind of the gist of it.
Do you think this is so? Because you do breaking changes fairly
Yeah.
often, I would say, right? Do you think
Yeah.
you end up
Every
with
6 months.
Laravel 20 within a couple of years, or what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. So like, I guess we'll go through 2 numbers a year. So yeah, it'll be pretty high. I mean, kind of like React 16 or whatever they're on now.
Yeah. I
So
guess I don't even know what version Symfony is anymore. It's just Symfony to me.
yeah, yeah. And unless you're building like packages on it, like who really cares? And I like, I was sort of like apathetic to the whole semantic versioning thing as far as the framework itself goes. Like I think it's really nice for all of our packages and stuff, but I don't know. A lot of people wanted it, and it's really no skin off my back. So I just like, whatever. Let's just do it, and we'll be consistent all across the board.
Fair.
Yeah, that makes sense. But to take it like just a turn complete 180 for a second, when you built Laravel, it was kind of just like to scratch an itch to solve a problem at Userscape, but now it's grown into this project that, I mean, honestly, if I say Laravel, people think Taylor Otwell, huge 6-foot bald-headed guy. It is what it is. How like I asked this question to a lot of my coworkers, and they all kind of said, like, how does it feel to take an open source project that you just kind of started on your own, and now it's making considerable money from? Like, how does that change things? How does that make you like feel 8-10 years down the road from now?
Well, it's been, just a crazy journey, and I'm happy it's turned out this way. And, um, to me, it's like always kind of a balancing act too, with like, I never really intended to make money off of the framework or turn it into a business when I started it. It was just like the framework was just kind of a stepping point to me launching some other like unrelated outside of the dev tooling space business. And so once Laravel started making money, which is really when I launched Laravel Forge, um, I don't know, I kind of started to like get a little bit more serious about it. Eventually had to hire staff and stuff just to keep up with everything. And also like it's just a balancing act, between providing these sort of commercial services and not making the framework feel like super commercialized. So in the past, I've tried to kind of alternate like what I do on various years. So like one year I put out, let's say like Laravel Spark, and it's like a for-profit thing. And then so the next year we put out Laravel Horizon as like a free thing, just to sort of like not let it feel too tipped one side or the other. Like we made Laravel Telescope free. We made Laravel Nova paid, just stuff like that. Because I don't want it to feel just like this commercial, I don't know, just like soulless business. You know what I mean? That's just like this enterprise thing that is not fun anymore. So that's always kind of the balancing act I'm trying to do. So next year, like I'm going all open source stuff, no commercial stuff, just like all open source packages, all Laravel stuff, and just focus on that for the whole year.
So since you're on this podcast, can we get a teaser of what's coming next, or is that like completely under wraps till Laracon next year?
Well, I don't really care. Like because right now I'm just still like in the idea formulation stage. So like a lot of stuff that gets requested in Laravel is people ask for like GraphQL stuff. They ask for like better helpers around like two-factor authentication stuff. Let me look on my list. And then just like some Laravel features that aren't necessarily like packages, but I want to make the Laravel stubs like more customizable. So when you do like make controller or make model, all that's just like you can customize it to your own like stub or style or whatever. I want to get our UI scaffolding, a Tailwind option for that. So all of that stuff is just sort of like open source stuff I want to explore. Some of it's like bigger than others, and then I'll just kind of like this fall, I'll formulate kind of more ideas for what I want to tackle in 2020 and try to get it together. Usually the fall is actually kind of a sort of a low key time for me, and because I usually just put out like a big new version and release whatever big new thing I was working on at Laracon. And the fall is sort of like my sort of recharge period where I just try to gather ideas for what I want to kind of do next.
Have you found like the fact that you're kind of consuming Laravel now as a user and as a creator, has that informed your creation of Laravel at all?
Oh yeah, like I don't think I would want to work on Laravel otherwise, or like build. It's really hard to build open source stuff if you're not a user. Like that would be really scary to me because I would feel like I was just sort of like guessing in the dark about what is actually useful and what's not useful. So like building Vapor on Laravel is, it's super helpful to me. And I think even more so in the past, just like building stuff like Nova or Envoy, or back when the framework was a little younger, Forge especially. I mean, because framework was only a couple years old. It helps like just suss out these parts of the framework that really suck or that are really annoying, and sort of bring them to the surface to where they're become really obvious and I can get them fixed. Of course, like the more you do that has sort of diminishing returns. So like this time around, I only found like one or two things that I thought was kind of frustrating. So now that I've been around the block 4 or 5 times, like that hasn't like paid off quite as much, but I mean, it still like gives me a lot more confidence in the framework itself. And it's nice just to like as the user base has grown and, more companies use Laravel now, I get a lot of really good feedback from other people too, that are using Laravel, in serious applications, in a business context. And so they have a good idea about what's working and what isn't working.
It's cool. So is that like, what's your main go-to for how you generate ideas? What you need to work on, right? Is it like your experience, or just the things users report, or some combination of the two? I imagine there's
a
quite a lot going on, right? So
yeah,
it'd be hard to or
There's a combination of things. Like a lot of it is just driven out of my own like sort of what I want or like just stuff that's bugging me at the time. A lot of it's or some of it's driven just by like the other Laravel team members. So like Mohammed, Dries, James, they have their own ideas they pitch too. Um, so like Laravel Telescope, that was entirely Mohammed's idea, really. And he sort of birthed the idea, and we sort of fleshed it out together. But he was really the main driving force behind that whole package. And then Laravel Nova was really David Hemphill's idea at its core. And he kind of worked up a prototype using just Laravel and Blade templates, no like JavaScript or anything on the front end, and kind of pitched it to me as like, hey, I think this would be really useful. And people had told me like, hey, I really want an admin panel for Laravel, but that was kind of one of those things where I wasn't living in that world. So like to me, I was just like, well, you have Table Plus or like SQL Pro, like what else do you need? Just like run a query against your data or whatever. But he kind of like set me down and was like, dude, look, this would be really useful, and pitched it to me. And so I kind of bought it after that and saw the use case for it. And then we built that together. So yeah, it's just a mix, and some of it's just people on the internet, with on GitHub making pull requests, or like on GitHub, we have a Laravel/ideas repository where you can just kind of like dump out any ideas you have about the framework. And I actually do go through and read those. Just a month or two ago, I read at least skimmed through all of them, and there's hundreds of them out there. But we pulled a feature off of that for Laravel 6, the job middleware feature, because it was kind of a combination of it being out there on that idea board. And then once I saw it, I thought about like, oh yeah, I actually did have this problem on Vapor where that would have been pretty useful. So we were able to get that into Laravel 6.
That's cool. So now that you have these employees and things are a little more split up, where do you personally spend most of your time?
So for the past 10 months or whatever, I built Laravel Vapor while everyone else sort of like held down the fort. So Mohammed was maintaining like Forge and Envoy and answering support questions. And I was answering support questions too for anything that like had to be escalated up to me or whatever. And then Dries was handling all of our open source packages, issues, just he could come ask me questions if there was some like confusion or whatever. And then James, he actually wasn't really on board until after Laracon US, so he's pretty recent, but he's been working on Nova pretty much exclusively, getting that just like get the issues cleaned up on GitHub, getting new features in. So I sort of always tackle like the initial prototype of the new stuff myself, like Laravel Vapor. I built the whole back end myself, and then once I kind of got it like prototyped out and working, Mohammed came in and sort of helped me clean up like the final, like 10 to 15% of the product and get it sort of polished up. And then me and Adam Wathen pair programmed out the whole Tailwind front end. So yeah, I usually do like a lot of the R&D type stuff, I guess you could say, just kind of like specking out new ideas and testing them out.
That's cool. Like day to day, do you find yourself doing like a lot of support? Like, are you gonna call at night, or is a lot of that automated at this point?
I'd still do a lot of support. I mean, every day I answer support emails on Help Scout and for all of the products, really. Um, no, I don't really do anything at night. Like I just work 8 to 5, and any support that comes in like after I get off work is probably not going to be answered until Mohammed wakes up in the morning, which is like I don't know, like midnight or 1 a.m. our time, Central Time. So that you don't have to go super long actually until someone's like up and around in the Laravel world. So just a few hours of downtime. That was actually really convenient. Like I didn't really think about it that way when I hired Mohammed, but it actually worked out pretty nice having him be so many time zones away, because it sort of gives us someone in the overnight hours to keep an eye on things.
That's cool. How do y'all handle communication? Do you use like Slack, or how do you
We
ACL?
actually just use Telegram. Like we just have a Telegram group. We did use I think we used Slack for a little bit, and then we used Discord for a little bit, and then we just like stripped down all the way to Telegrams, because it's just like so fast and so simple, and it's not like a lot of um I don't know, it just doesn't feel like as heavy as some of those other solutions, especially Slack. But
Yeah, 50% of my CPU is over there right now.
yeah.
I think Matt might be frozen. Are you frozen, Matt?
He's
No,
done.
my internet sucks and it keeps cutting out. No,
I
I'm
don't think
here.
there's even a way to like turn off the video. This new.
Internet keeps cutting out. What?
Never mind. We'll move on while Matt catches up with himself.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
so
actually
you had.
it's, ac-
Okay.
it's actually just like a really chill work environment at Laravel. Like everyone kind of like knows what they're doing, and I don't know. We just all show up, and we don't actually. Some days we don't chat much at all, and some days we do if we're trying to iron out a problem. But it's actually pretty laid back little environment.
You mean you're not like some little dictator everybody hates?
No, I actually feel like I'm. A lot of times I feel like I don't give enough direction. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of because I don't like to invent like busy work, I guess. So and just in like the flow of developing something like Laravel, there's just like naturally this periods where there's not a lot going on, and like that's okay. And we're not going to be able to fill 8 hours every day, which is hardcore like in our text editor programming crap. It's just not ever going to work out that way. So I just kind of accepted the fact that some days we won't work like all that hard, and some days we will, and that's just how it is, and whatever.
I think that's important. A lot of companies miss that because
Yeah, big time.
personally, like that's where a lot of the creativity for me comes in. Like if my schedule's full, I'm not really gonna be creative. But if I'm bored and I like have a couple hours to go, whatever, do housework or just kind of piddle around, that's
Yeah.
really when like my brain feels like it's processing things in the background, and I'm more
Yeah.
creative that way.
Yep.
All right, so you already have Forge, and that seems pretty popular. What inspired you to do Vapor instead? Like, do you think you're gonna kind of cannibalize your own users there? Do you think it's gonna be a very different user set?
That was a fear for sure that it would cannibalize Forge. So with Forge, obviously it's all server based, so like it provisions stuff on DigitalOcean and Linode and all that, and that's great. And like I still use that even after Vapor came out. I'm sure I'll continue to use that. But I was just like really personally intrigued by this whole model of what serverless was doing, where it was like pay as you go and scaling really quickly on demand. And to me, it was just almost like a personal challenge to see like, screw it. I'll just see if I can get Laravel working on Lambda in like this productive way. And then once I started down that path, I eventually hit this kind of point of no return where like I'd been working on it for so long. I was like, well, I guess I'll try to turn this into like a real thing, and kept going with it. So it was just something I was kind of personally interested in. And then as far as cannibalizing Forge, like I just kind of priced it in a way that I hope it wouldn't cannibalize Forge. So like I made the higher tier Forge plan the same price as the Vapor plan. That way, like if someone cancels Forge and goes to Vapor, at worst they're paying the same. So because that was like a fear, is like if I make, I don't know, I could just like trash my whole business, have to start firing people if I priced it the wrong way. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Forge will always kind of be more popular than Vapor, just because Vapor is, it's just, Forge is just like fits most applications fine. I think like most applications don't need serverless auto scaling up to this insane level. So I don't know. I think Forge will always kind of be the meat and potatoes, and some people use Vapor.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's right now it's what most people are used to, right? So you
Yeah.
have to really dive in to learn serverless if you're
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's a whole different mentality, for some people, like they're used to being able to like SSH into a server and like read some log files, or like, run PHP Artisan Tinker on their production web server. They're used to stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a mind, or like just a shift to go to Vapor. Yeah.
Like I had some sites on Firebase, right? And today they had an outage, or they didn't say they had an outage, but everything I had fucking went down for like an hour. So obviously they had one. And
Yeah.
It's really like, it's weird because if the server goes down, I'm empowered to at least pretend like I can do something. But when Firebase goes down, I'm just like, well, I guess I'll just wait and hope they fix it,
Yeah. I mean, the same way with Vapor, pretty much. If Amazon goes down, you're just kind of at their mercy.
Speaking of, do you have any plans to add Firebase in the future, or are you going to stick with Lambda?
So, like, when I first started writing Vapor, I had this good idea that like I would just abstract like, so I have this like class in Vapor called a cloud provider, and it's like supposed to be this generic thing that, you know, would work for other serverless providers. And like the deeper I got down the Vapor road, like the harder I realized that was going to be to like make that generic, because it's not too bad if you're just doing like serving static HTML or like something pretty basic. But once I got into like queues and databases and certificate management and all that, like it became this really leaky abstraction around cloud providers. So at that point, I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to focus on AWS. I probably don't even have time to dig into some of these other cloud providers. So in theory, that was the idea. Maybe we'll revisit that someday. But right now, I'm just kind of like got all my eggs in the AWS basket.
Yeah, makes sense. It's definitely more popular too. How are you finding with the uptick with Vapor? Is it popular?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, I don't know. Like we had about like 9,000 people on the waiting list to get in, and man, to be honest, like I haven't even checked like how many. I've invited 2,000 of those 9,000 into the app. And let me check like how many have signed up maybe. So let's see. It looks like about 230 people out of the 2,000 I've signed up. So like what, I don't know, a little over like 10% have actually like followed through. So to me that's okay. Like let me see. Yeah, like if that trend continued, like I would be pretty happy with where Vapor ended up, and it would kind of put it in like that envoyer space, which is kind of where I had a hunch that like it would end up in terms of number of users and sort of what it does for Laravel as a business. Because I look at envoying kind of the same way. Like a lot of people are fine with just the Forge deployment system, but there's like this subset of people that want the Envoy zero downtime deployment. And I kind of look at Vapor the same way as that. Like a lot of people are going to be good with Forge, but some people are going to want the serverless scalability stuff in Vapor. So again, I don't think it will ever be as big as Forge, but if the trend continues like how it's going, then I think I'll be pretty happy with it, and it will kind of hit my expectations, I guess, of where I thought it would end up.
So what's your like onboarding plan? You just open up to like a few hundred people a week or something to keep your support down, or what's
Yeah, since we were coming up to Laravel 6, and like we had a lot of stuff going on with Laracon US, with Laracon Europe over in Amsterdam, I didn't want to like overwhelm myself with customer support and you know, just like all the little bugs that happen when you first start letting people into the app. So we let 1,000 in a couple weeks ago, and I just let another 1,000 in today. And I think next week I'll probably just like open it up for general registration because I think after letting in a couple thousand, like we've kind of got all the initial feedback that I think we're going to get and kind of uncover the initial problems, which I kind of want to patch a few things up tomorrow that got uncovered today with this batch of users. And then I think next week we'll be ready to just let everybody that wants to sign up.
Do you get you pretty chill about that now, or do you get like really nervous before a big launch like that still?
Man, I was like surprisingly kind of chill about this launch. I was pretty nervous about the Forge launch just because it was sort of the first time around. And but yeah, with this, like, I don't know, man, just like whatever. Like
It kind of like always freaked me out the way you launch things at the conference. Because it'd be like,
yeah,
I would be so nervous because like I got to manage a conference and now I'm gonna launch, and it's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, what am I gonna do? You know?
yeah. I don't know. It'll work out, hopefully. If it doesn't, whatever. Like I don't know. Like it's just hard like to get too like worked up about it anymore. I think if we would have let everyone in the first day, that actually would have been pretty overwhelming and would have been pretty nerve wracking. But letting it in small groups like this has been quite a bit better, actually.
So, I mean, like when you're letting people in, is it just, you know, a straight count down your database table, or is it just
Yeah.
random IDs, just throwing them into an array and saying, email these people?
No, it's literally like when I first put it out there, I had a table in the database called like early access. And when you put your email in on the Vapor side, it just sticks your email in that table. And then like literally today, so I already let in 1,000. I went in today and just did like insert into the beta users table, which those are the users that can actually like sign up on the app, and then just select email from early access, you know, limit 1,000, offset 1,000. And then I copied those emails into MailChimp, sent them an email, and was like, hey, you can get into Vapor now. So it's like super low tech, actually.
No, that's really cool. I mean, the tweet I sent out today, like half the people were like, "I want Vapor access now," and I'm like, "Well, I can't give it to you because I have no access." But I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a product launch like this in the open source PHP world where people are just like clamoring at it. And now conferences are trying to kind of not steal your game, but take influence from what you've done, where you're launching products at the conference. And now I know other PHP conferences in the greater community are trying to look at what you're doing and saying, I want to do that now. I mean, that's got to be a pretty cool feeling to see other conferences taking influence.
Yeah, I think it makes the conference fun. Like if there's some surprise unveil at the conference, just kind of makes it more interesting. And like for me, like I sort of don't like preparing conference talks. It's hard for me to think of topics. It's hard for me to think of anything to say. So now I just like launch stuff, and then I have something to talk about, and it's just like easier all around. So
is it you also organizing the conference, or do you kind of outsource that to somebody else, or are you still pretty hands on with that too?
It's changed over the years. So like the first Laracon was actually in 2012, and Ian, my boss at Userscape, he was the one that like pitched me the idea to even do a Laracon. I didn't really think Laravel had enough interest at the time, much smaller than it is today. But he thought like we could get like 100 people, whatever, and I think we ended up with like 90 people at the conference. And so Userscape, like as a whole, helped organize it. But then once I went out on my own, so they did that for the first like couple Laracons. So then once I went out on my own, I actually did it entirely myself. When we moved to Louisville, I mainly organized it myself, and then I had someone on the ground that lived in Louisville, and his company used Laravel. His name was Brian Webb, and he sort of helped me scout out venues and take care of anything locally. And now the past couple of years, I've hired a girl named Adeline Keith, who I met her and her husband at MicroConf in Las Vegas, and she's actually a wedding planner typically, but like her husband had told me, hey, my wife's an event organizer, and if you ever want any help with Laracon, let us know. And so like 8 months later, like I remember this conversation, and so I shot Braden, who he has a Laravel consultancy as well. And I was like, hey, is your wife still interested in helping organize Laracon? And she's the one that's really like been the main event planner for Laracon 2018 and this year 2019, which was a lot of work actually, like all the catering and decor and like tables and table linens and all of that. She takes care of, and then I mainly take care of like the AV side. So like I handled all the screen, LED wall, like reservation, all like the uplighting and other lighting in the venue, and then also just like speaker selection and stuff like that. I still do as well. So I'm still definitely involved, but the event planner has helped like a ton. I don't think it would be doable with just one person for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, Laracon's grown
every year. Do you have like?
I mean, by a magnitude each and every single year. I mean, I think it's maybe outside of WordCamp, it's the most attended PHP conference that there is, I would think.
Yeah, it's kind of the one thing I do like about Laracon is that because Laravel has other revenue streams, we don't have to make any money at all on Laracon. Like I actually lost like $5,000 this year on Laracon, and I kind of like it that way because a lot of conferences just aren't in that position, and they're not. It sucks that they aren't, but like they have to make money, right, to like support themselves, just to keep the conference going and to like pay themselves for their time and stuff like that. But I like that we can just kind of like every dollar that comes in, we can pour right back into the conference to make it like the best possible event we can. And we're just kind of lucky that way, but since we have other revenue streams. But I don't know. I think it lets us run like a nice event because New York is definitely not the cheapest place to run a conference. So I don't know if we'll be back in New York for 2020, but we'll see.
Do you plan to just like let it keep growing year over year, or do you plan or do you feel like there's like a balance there between what's good and what's too big?
I don't really like growing it is not really like my main goal. So like if we found just like a killer venue somewhere else in 2020, but like it only set like 750 people, let's say this year we're at 900, like that'd be fine with me. Like I wouldn't really care about like downsizing to that number if like just the venue is just like so great, we just like can't pass it up. But I think we'll aim for that like between that like 700 and 900 range, I think. I don't know how much bigger I can really grow it. We grew like in 2018 we had 800, and this year we had 900. So we grew, but it's not like we like doubled it or anything. It was kind of a small growth. I think conferences, it's getting hard, for conferences to sell tickets, and I don't really know like what the reason for that is. Like I don't know if it's just like there's so much online resources for learning now, and you have stuff like Laracast and SymphonyCast and all the other cast websites that are out there, that I don't know if just like people don't they don't really feel like the benefit of coming to a conference technically. For a lot of people, I think it's more of a social networking thing than it is a technical thing. And I think it's important for, I don't know, I kind of want to lean into that a little bit more and embrace that aspect a little more in the future. Because there's rarely technical talks at a conference that you can't just Google, it's hard to present something that's like unique and feels valuable technically just because there's already so much information out there.
Yeah, I agree. Usually I'm more excited about like learning a new concept or about a new tool or something like that in a talk. And it's not a good medium to get too deep in either, right? Because you have to kind of cater to the lowest common denominator, and you can't go too deep in 15 minutes anyway, right?
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like I've tried like the past like 3 years, I think, like I've been like, can we just rethink conference, like what a conference looks like at all in general, and maybe just like take some whole other approach with it, but I can never come up with anything that feels very good. So I'm just kind of stuck with sort of the tried and true formula of like, just a row of talks or whatever. But I don't know. I would like to have some like innovative conference idea that sort of like embraced the whole community aspect of it. And I don't know, just kind of had a different spin on it to make it feel like more fresh, but maybe next year.
Yeah. It's cool that you're at least trying to play with that, right? Because I feel like so many are just kind of recycling the same thing.
Yeah.
So like outside of Laravel, is there anything you're like interested in? Anything you're playing with, either programming or a hobby, anything like that? Like what else is going on with you?
Well, I tried to learn like front end stuff quite a bit more this year. So that was just always my weakest point outside of like back end Laravel stuff. So like I started learning Tailwind, and building Vapor was a big like help with that, since Adam, the creator of Tailwind, pair-programmed it with me. And like at the beginning, he was literally just telling me what to type, basically like BG Gray 100. And I was just typing whatever he told me. But by the end, I felt like quite a bit more proficient at it. And I think that was really helpful for me, because I always felt like I was just chained to Bootstrap forever, and could never use anything else. Outside of that, I don't know, man, just like hanging out with the kids, like playing basketball outside my house, playing Rocket League, just stuff like that.
Man, I'm addicted to Rocket League.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dude, I love and hate Rocket League. Like I play it.
Everyone like tries to get me to these like real games, right? And I'm like, why would I do that? I have Rocket League. It's all I need in my life.
Yeah. Oh man, I got like just today. I was so mad at that game. Like I told Adam, like me and Adam always play over lunch, like a couple 2v2 games. I told him that I didn't ever want to mention or talk about this game ever again. I'm never playing, so don't ask me.
Did you play when they had this is probably boring half the audience. Did you play Spikes when they had it out? Like
Oh yeah. That was fun.
I love that. Like, that was
fun.
It's different.
Yeah.
Sounds like I should buy a Switch.
It does.
Yeah, it's on every platform.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Just I wouldn't recommend it. Like it's a dark hole you don't want to go down.
I mean, I've played it before. Ben came to Nashville and we played it in a hotel for a little while. It was a lot of fun. So maybe. I mean, have you ever thought about like having like a massive Rocket League 2v2 tournament, like you and Adam versus whoever at Laracon, just to see?
Dude,
like,
that would be like my dream conference right there.
That would be really fun.
Yeah,
like make it like a you know how you have PHP Jeopardy or whatever. Make it like that, but like make it like a tournament style, move up kind of thing. That'd be fun.
Yeah, this year we tried to do a Laravel's Got Talent thing on stage. We actually had a Baltimore Ravens cheerleader attended the conference. I guess he's like a programmer as well, and so he was pretty hardcore, like doing some backflips on the stage and stuff. But Yeah, I don't know. Try to come up with something cool for next year.
It's great until the stage like falls in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we had insurance for like athletic displays on stage.
That dude like breaks his neck, and you're just like, well,
Oh,
that
dude,
sucks.
that'd be the end of Laravel.
Yeah. PHP framework kills cheerleader.
Oh man, I shouldn't be
I
laughing
mean,
at that.
no, we probably shouldn't, but we're going to because we're terrible people. I mean, it's the typing contest from Titan seems to be like
Oh yeah, dude. I like the typing contests.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So like there's always a few people that I know are going to be at the top of that, like Sarah Bine and Samantha Geitz. They're both just like blazing fast at those typing competitions. Sarah Bine's ridiculous at typing competitions, but we had a new guy this year that I haven't seen like in previous years typing competitions that came in and won. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like it's, I mean, even during the middle of the talks where like it's the hallway track, you still seem like there's things to do in the conference space, not just coming out to the sponsors, which kind of comes back to where you are at the conference, which is you don't really need to make money. You don't really need to go to conference. So people are going to go to the sponsors because they're generally interested in them, not because you really want their sponsorship next year for that sweet money.
Yeah, right. Next year, like honestly, I would like to have less sponsors or like even no sponsors. Sorry to all the sponsors out there, but it's just like I don't know, man. It's just like I really love the sponsors that I work with because I really only work with sponsors that I know and would like actually recommend to people. And I tried it. I don't know. It's just another one of those balancing act things, where like I try not to make the whole thing feel like too corporatized. So I try to limit the number of sponsors in the venue to like 8 or 9. So we don't have like a big exhibit hall or anything like that. And then just pick like fun sponsors to actually work with. So like Statamic, they brought like a Super Nintendo and a CRT television to their booth this year with Street Fighter 2. And like Blackfire gave away like a 50-inch TV. So I don't know, just like I try to bring in cool sponsors if I'm gonna have sponsors, at least make it fun.
Did anyone consider logistics of trying to get a 50-inch TV onto an airplane, or was it just kind
I
of
don't
like
know how that was.
good luck?
I don't know how that like was actually delivered. It was I saw it at the venue, like they had it there, but I don't know what happened with who won it or how they got it home.
Huh.
I don't know. I saw Jack McDade wheeling his CRT down the middle of Times Square. So, and then he hauled it up. He hauled it to the hotel bar and set it up at the bar, and played Street Fighter. So pretty fun.
I'm going to the wrong conferences. I need to go to Laracon next year.
Yeah, it was fun.
You're actually a Laravel person now, right, Matt? You converted completely.
Well, I was Laravel, and then I dipped my toes to the Symphony world, and then I came back. So
came back to the one true faith.
Well, there was cookies, and I like cookies. So no, I mean I've never been one like I don't really care enough. Like I just want to get paid and live a lavish lifestyle of hipsterdom and bicycles. I've never really cared too much. But the one thing, like I always talk to Ryan Weaver, who's a pretty good friend, and John Wage is who used to be my boss. One of my biggest complaints about Symphony was that like anytime I set up a Laravel project, I could have it up and running in like an hour, give or take. I never had to install anything extra. I just knew out of the box Laravel was good to go. And the biggest thing that helped me do that was the artisan console commands. Like those are worth their weight in gold, in my opinion. Get rid of everything else and just keep artisan, and I would still be a huge fan. And like with Symphony, it's such a mountain to climb to figure out to get the maker bundle in there, and that's where all the commands are, but it doesn't come with the framework. And it's just, I mean, for everything that people bitch about Laravel online and versus Symphony, blah blah blah. The thing that just makes Laravel so great is that artisan console. It just out of the box, good to go.
Yeah, I haven't actually used any other PHP frameworks outside of Slim, Laravel, and CodeIgniter. So like I've never used Symfony as a framework, so I don't know a lot about it. But one thing I do like is that recently I feel like Symfony and Laravel have been kind of pushing each other quite a bit. Where like kind of like what you were saying, like Laravel was sort of felt ahead in terms of like the DX department and developer experience, but I think Symfony has been catching on to that and sort of trying to like improve their experience in that regard. And I think like I don't know, I just kind of like that the frameworks push each other forward lately, and they do cool stuff, which inspires me to try to do cool stuff, which hopefully like just pushes them as well. So I don't know, like I've never used Symfony, so I don't have a lot to say about it outside of the components, but I'm really thankful for the components they put out because like they almost never have any problems. Like we've never had to report. I don't think I've ever really reported a bug even in any of those Symfony components. So it's like really stable and nice components.
Yeah, they really are. And I mean, I can tell you from first-hand experience that Ryan and Nicholas and a few other guys I've talked to over there, they all credit Laravel's DX as what they've been working on this last iterative cycle. Because of
Yeah.
what you provide out of the box is what they've been really trying to work towards. So it definitely is starting to become more of a symbiotic relationship. You know, you push them to a new level, they find a way to push you, and instead of like everyone hating each other, we're all just like, sweet, we get new frameworks.
Yeah. I actually don't see a lot of like negative stuff from Symfony people. I think like the most negative PHP people I come across are sort of like the unframework people, you know, that sort of like they have their one true way that's not really like no framework is good enough even for like their architecture. Those people are like the most like hardcore toxic, but I don't know, like PHP is a big pie, you know, and Symfony and Laravel, and there's probably room for even more frameworks to all exist within that ecosystem just because there's so many dang users of PHP that, you know, there's enough to go around and for everyone to have a decent user base.
Oh yeah, agreed. And speaking of frameworks, one question that I did get today on Twitter, I was kind of interested in is, so you released Lumen, gosh, 5 years ago or so, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Is that, I mean, would you consider development pretty much complete on that, or is there things still working?
I consider development pretty much complete on that. Like, running a micro framework, like I'd be curious to hear what the Slim maintainers have to say about this, but running a micro framework is a weird job because if you don't add anything, people are like, you know, is this project dead? Is this project abandoned? But if you do add things, it's like, oh, I want this to be a micro framework. Like this is bloated now. So it's like this very, it's this very like razor thin line. It feels like
a router every 6 months. People will be happy.
yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, what else is there to add? You know, like it's a micro framework, the end. And then also I think part of my sort of lack of interest in adding much more is that PHP itself just got a lot faster in those last 5 years. So when Lumen first came out, PHP 7 did not exist yet. And the speed difference between Lumen and Laravel or like Lumen and a full stack framework was more noticeable and like more significant. But once PHP 7 came out with, you know, the op cache and the various optimizations we can do, and then, you know, with PHP 7.4 coming, you have the new preload file, which is like another 10%, 15% speed boost. Like the speed difference between Lumen and Laravel just got less and less significant, to the point where I usually recommend people just start with Laravel now because, you know, just like it's unlikely that Laravel is going to be your bottleneck. It just really is. There's lots of Laravel apps out there in the wild now, and I don't even really remember people coming to me and being like, Laravel is our bottleneck, and you know, we're gonna have to switch because Laravel's too slow. Like that's never happened actually.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of something people focus on too much. Like most of the time, your framework code, regardless of the framework, is not going to be your bottleneck. And
Yeah.
it's like when you're at the scale that it is, you probably have the resources to like make your own or strip back what you don't need or whatever, right?
Yeah, probably. Like, I don't know. Laravel on Vapor, hello world request on the Vapor side is like 6 milliseconds. So yeah, could we make this framework twice as fast and spend like our whole 2020 focusing on that and not adding any other features? Maybe, but we would save like 3 milliseconds. So it's just like, I don't know. It's generally fast enough for most applications, I think. Like I said, I don't ever really get any complaints about that from like actual users. It's more people that are like prematurely optimizing that are complaining about that. So like usually when someone asks me about, they ask about Laravel performance, like on Twitter, or they send me an email, I usually ask them like, what app right now are you trying to scale? Like what's the URL of the app that you're trying to scale? And, it's usually not any real app. It's just the idea of an app they have in their head that's not actually out there yet. So.
I mean, if you're not getting a fastest scaling app on Product Hunt, are you really trying though? I mean, I think that's kind of like where they're trying to go, is they think they're going to hit
Sure.
number one. But I mean, I think that makes sense. And I would be curious to hear the Slim maintainer because I think they just released 4 not that long ago.
And I guess the Fig kind of gave them some stuff to work with, like with new, what they're called.
PSRs.
New PSRs. I forgot what they were called. With new PSRs, kind of gave them some stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough.
So you bounced out of the Fig a little while ago. Do you still pay attention to what they're doing, or is it kind of just you doing your own thing? And
yeah, I do try to pay attention to what they're doing. And like when I left Fig, it wasn't really for any dramatic reason. It was just that like I was never reading the proposals really, and like wasn't really contributing just due to time constraints. So I was just like, like I don't know, if I'm not going to participate, like why be in this? But then afterwards, Joe Ferguson actually told me that Laravel could have had a voting representative. Like it didn't have to be me, which at that point I was like, oh, well, I would have just done that. But then I had already left. So like it was kind of too late or whatever. But yeah, I do still actually keep up with kind of what they're doing and like actually try to, if it makes sense, like try to use the stuff like was PSR 12 the new like syntax thing?
Yeah.
So like that all looked pretty fine to me. Like I didn't see any big issues there. And I think we just got PSR 6, the more like complicated cache one, I think. Or is that simple cache? One of the cache ones we just got in as well, actually recently. So yeah, I try to at least like use the stuff we can and or whatever and keep up with it.
That's cool. So there was one kind of repeat question on Twitter I wanted to get to, which is kind of one of the ones that were more complaining, but I think it would be good for you to address, right? So like a lot of people, I guess, feel like they put in PRs to Laravel and they get their PR closed and they don't necessarily agree or don't have a good explanation for why it was closed. So can you talk about like, the reasoning behind PRs you merge versus don't?
Yeah. So people complained about that. I want to say maybe like 8 or 9 months ago, and I actually went into GitHub and created a couple different automated responses that like I can select out of the little drop down menu when I close something now. So now like I always close with like a response, but in the past, yeah, some stuff did get closed without one. So right now there's 2 sort of responses you could get if I close it. You could get an insufficient pull request response, which means that like your pull request generally looked okay, but it was missing tests or it like was missing sort of a thorough explanation of what it was or what you wanted to accomplish with it. It's because sometimes people will actually send pull requests that have very little explanation about like what's the end goal they have in mind or like what's the use case where they could envision this being helpful for people in the framework. So in that case, I close it with that response, and it's like a couple of paragraphs explaining that. And then like if it's missing tests, I'll like bold the test part of the explanation to like let them know that's why I was closing it. And then there's also one that's just called denied pulled request, which when I close it that way, it means that like it's just not something I want to maintain in the framework. And a lot of that is because once something comes in, I sort of become the maintainer of it. Even if that person says like, oh, like I'll help maintain it. Like I can't really depend on that like 100% because, it's not like it's a contract or something. Like they don't have to come back, or sometimes people change jobs and now they program and Go now at their new job and they don't, they're not working in Laravel and they don't even remember why they did that pull request because it was something for their job or whatever. So in that case, I just close it and it says something like, we don't want to, overburden the framework maintainers with maintaining this feature, but if you're able to release this as a package, on Composer, please consider doing that instead. And if you feel that it's been incorrectly closed, like it's a security vulnerability, please email taylor@laravel.com directly or whatever. That's basically the gist of the automated responses. So Yeah, every pull request I close either gets typically one of those two responses, and yeah, just the maintenance burden of like accepting a ton of pull requests is pretty tough. Like right now, we actually have an open pull request. It's been open for a week or two. That it's someone thinks there's a bug with something that someone else contributed, but because we didn't write this code, we're not entirely sure like the intention behind the code that they contributed, and we're sort of like playing this waiting game, waiting for feedback from the original person. And now we're not sure, like, will we even be able to get this feedback from the original person? So it's just always the risk you take, when you accept PRs. But I don't
I
know.
think a lot of people
It's
look at
tough.
it too, like it's hard to keep an API clean and minimal, right? Like the API actually just up the framework. So like I'm
Yeah.
sure you end up closing all the things just because like this is a great idea, but it's not necessarily something we need or most users need.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good ideas that just could be could be released on Composer or whatever, and then that's great because so other people can use them and we don't have to maintain them. So it's sort of a win-win. But I don't know. People sort of like having. There's always that. People like stuff being official for some reason. Like even though we have this nice package manager and Composer, and we have this way to build Laravel packages or even just to build generic PHP packages, people just get this like warm fuzzies if their feature is like an official Laravel feature. Even though like, what's the difference really? Like it doesn't really matter, but people just like it that way.
Well, I mean, it looks cool on the resume to say I got a pull request accepted.
Yeah, that's true.
Laravel. But I mean, I've also heard Sebastian say the same thing. Like every pull request you merge in is more code you have to maintain. And
yeah,
I mean, while you have Mohammed, Dries, and James for now, you may or may not have them 2 years down the road. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's going to fall on you. So personally, I get it. But I can see how other people feel slighted, even though it's kind of silly.
That's honestly the hardest part of like open source is just saying no to pull requests because it sucks for everybody involved. It sucks for the person that submitted the pull request because they spent time writing the code, and it sucks for us because we just feel bad. But, like I don't know, it really sucks. And honestly, like I don't know. It's my least favorite part of open source because I just hate to do it. But I don't know. Someone's got to curate, what goes in, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, you have to cut it at some point. Just say yes, no, and treat even open source as a business, even if it's not a true money making venture.
Yeah, and some stuff that gets closed initially actually does end up getting in later. Like I'll close something initially with like, hey, we just don't really want to take this on, but then because like it just keeps coming up, and after like the 6th pull request of the same feature, you're kind of like, well, okay, maybe there's some merit to this, and it gets in. So I mean, it's not the end of all hope if it doesn't get in the first time. Sometimes I do revisit stuff that was closed.
Yeah, I can imagine, like you get a pull request and you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense now, but then 3 months on the road, it's probably like, oh, that probably makes a lot of sense now. Come back around, open up a PR again, things like that. But so Ben wanted to bring up Ignition real fast. What was the idea behind that, and how did you go ahead and build that to life?
That was actually all like Frake and Marcel's idea. So like Frake Vanderherten and Marcel Posiot, I guess is how you would say his name. They live over in Europe. I think they live in Belgium, actually, like in Antwerp, or at least Frake does. Anyway, they like pitched me the idea, and hey, we want to build this error page and error tracker for Laravel. And I was, sure, go for it or whatever. And if it's good, like I'll pull it into the framework because what the heck. And so they built it all themselves, and they just kind of they kept me updated and like showed me screenshots and let me pull it in to my Laravel project as they were building it, just so I could kind of like check it out or whatever. But it was really their project, and I think it turned out pretty good. Like I just gave them ideas, as they came to mind, but mainly it was all them. And then I just pulled it into Laravel 6 I don't know. It had some cool stuff, like some stuff I really liked. Like it made the blade errors a lot more manageable because you get like real line numbers and real file names and not compiled stuff. And then I really liked the ability to like, if you have just a typo in a file and you get an error, you can just edit the code right there on the ignition page and hit Command S and save it, and you're good to go. Just refresh the page. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Like, I think some of the concepts there will like eventually trickle down too to other frameworks. It'll really
Mhm.
change the way we troubleshoot and debug things in PHP. Because right now it is very much like a needle in a haystack with a stack trace or whatever, and you
Yeah.
have to figure out, okay, where's this actually point? Okay, oh, it's a typo. That just
Yeah.
took 15 minutes, and now Laravel will be one button click.
Yeah. I also really like the aspect of sharing it and with them adding comments as well, like the ability to share your local exception with like a public URL and then get comments on it right there in right there on the page, and then you can just mark it resolved later. That's a really cool feature, I think, too. Just if you're having a problem, you can share it right there.
Yeah, no, I've this is the first time I'm actually really kind of reading into Ignition on the fly. And I think it's actually really freaking cool. Considering that, like on Frake's .dev page, it has that uncaught exception with the terrible stack trace going all the way down, and now the evolution to Ignition just looks so much better.
Yeah, they did. It turned out really well, actually, and I thought like they did a really good job at their Laracon EU demo of like really highlighting some of the benefits of it. The solutions aspect is really cool and sort of opens up the door for community contributions as well, where like you can sort of like develop these solutions for common exceptions where you can even like have them fix your code for you. Like if you're missing like your application encryption key, it can generate one for you right there from the screen and all of that. And then people can contribute stuff. And then also people can contribute tabs to the screen. So like, one person's already built like a Stack Overflow tab where it just shows all the results from Stack Overflow for that exception message, and just other stuff like that. So
I
I
can
don't
see
know.
it too. Like eventually, you're in a large corporation, you have 100 devs, and there's a few errors you hit constantly.
Yes.
Right? You have your own solutions for your internal errors that you hit in
Yeah.
code base.
Yeah, and that was even in their Laracon talk. They even mentioned that exact use case. It just sort of cut down on those types of things.
No, this is exciting. I'm really cool. I think to pivot to kind of like the last thing on our long list of things we wanted to kind of bring up. So you've been doing this now for 8 years or so, kind of on your own, and you've kind of been open about what it's like to work at home, work on an open source project that makes money, things like that. What does retirement look like for you? Are you ever going to be able to pull yourself away from Laravel and kind of sit on a beach drinking fruity drinks, or are you always going to kind of like try and be involved with this until whenever?
I mean, for me, I'm going to ride the Laravel ship to the bottom, and like after that, I think I will be retired
If
basically.
this one last damn user would stop using
Yeah.
Laravel.
Yeah, like I'm going to ride, the Laravel ship all the way down, man, like with the violins playing and everything. But to me, it's just like crazy because I'm just curious how the story ends at this point, like it's been so long and it's been so crazy. Like what does the end look like? Like I'm just curious, I just feel like I'm reading this book or like watching this movie, and now I just want to know how that happens. And I think once that does happen, I hope like maybe I don't know if I just step away from programming entirely and like do something else or whatever, but I don't think there will be anything else in PHP that I do after Laravel. I think I'll walk away basically, and that will kind of be what I did in PHP. And maybe I moved, if I feel like programming still, maybe I move to some other language or whatever, but I would maybe even do other stuff just outside of programming and not be a professional programmer anymore, really. But I don't know, man. I don't know when that's going to happen, every year, you never know.
Rails, how long has that been around now, right? Like,
Yeah, over 10 years.
Same
Same thing with Symfony. Like, let me see when the Rails release date was. Rails was released 15 years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So,
like I feel like we just off the top of my head, I would think, oh well, frameworks don't live very long anyway. This won't happen for too long. But if you think like Rails and Symfony, like Rails is going to be around for at least 2 decades, and probably.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Rails is going to be around a long time, and Symfony is 14 years old. Symfony just came out 1 year after Rails, so yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Just because we're sort of in uncharted territory, as far as PHP frameworks go. Like nothing's ever been as big as Symfony or Laravel thus far as frameworks go. Obviously, WordPress is very large, so there's like no precedent to go on as far as what's going to happen, in the future. So I don't know. I'm just enjoying the ride while it lasts, and once the last Forge user cancels their subscription, I guess I won't think of it. But I don't know. It's been fun.
I'll go help that out and cancel my Forge subscription now to hit this iceberg.
You heard that, people? Give Taylor some peace. Go cancel.
Yeah. Everyone at once, cancel your Forge and Vapor subscriptions. Laravel is closed. We're all moving back to Kohana after this.
Taylor's like, I'm never coming on this damn podcast.
Yeah.
Man, this is the beginning of the end.
Yep. If Phil started it, I ended it. That's how it is.
Yep.
No, I mean, Taylor, thanks so much for your time tonight. It was really great. Great catching up with you. Again, congrats on Laravel 6, Vapor, and all that good stuff. I know your entire team worked really hard on that, so thank you. Ben, any last words?
No, it was fun, man. You were the first guest, and that was great to have you back 2 more versions later. So thanks for coming.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yep. When the Laravel ship sinks, you'll be the last guest on Town Hall.
Yeah, dude, let's do it. Town Hall number 200.
Oh, God, it sounds so far away.
All right. See ya.
Yes. Have a good night.